I don't know what I want to do today. I do have. Let's see. Last thing that I did was a cut up photograph. I don't know if that could inspire something. But I cut it on an angle and then had 4 copies of it and repositioned it. I could. Oh, that's a long time going. I was like, I could try to do that with an animation, but I would probably want to print it out, and that would be like a few days out. And I could try revisiting some other things at some point in time, but it'd have to be a shorter animation and have to work with it a little bit. But that's an idea for later, possibly, of taking something and then cutting it on angles and repositioning it. If you have 4 of a kind, then you can take like this one, let's say that this little circle guy, and then take each of those circles and do it like that. You can also, potentially, it would be something of a nightmare to manage unless I did it like piece by piece. That would take a long time. I could try it, but then you have an averaged out thing of what this sort of looks like spread across 4 pieces with different things happening. I could try to do something where I have an animation and I do it delayed, like take frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, and I'll have that same pattern and arrange it in a way where like it ends up being frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4 consistently, and it's some sort of loop, but it would have to be a pretty short animation where it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then this one is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, and so it loops in that way, but probably not going to do that. What was I thinking? Oh, I was thinking about taking the walk cycle I did the other day and adding some frames, possibly, because now I have the general form of it. It's not so difficult. And or working with it in dry brush. I've been curious about doing some more dry brush in animation to encourage smears and that sort of thing, where instead of having multiples or something like that, we're playing with the motion. I like the idea of, let me see, how many frames was that guy? Walk cycle, 16 frames. If I'm doubling it, that's 32. That's a lot, but I could do it, especially since it's more or less just taking this animation and adding frames into it. But overall, making it sort of blurrier, where instead of having like this sort of solid edge to the smear, having it softer and dry brush, but playing with where this one is crisp, but it's pretty fast moving, slowing it down by adding frames in between each of these frames, but making it looser with the edges and the qualities of it so that it's softer all around. I think I might do that. So the plan is to take these guys and redo it with some softer, blurrier bits in between. So it'll end up being like I sort of go over the first frame, then I reference the first and second frame and sort of go in between those 2 positions and so on and so forth until I get through all 32. So let's arrange the camera in a way that is a little bit better for seeing that process. I'm also thinking of, man, come on, let's hold a little bit better. Okay, that should be good. More. You good? Good. This might shift a little bit over time, I'm not sure. But settled. I can also move this physically. Oh, I'm switching up how I'm doing my shirts. Like the shirts will still be updating pretty frequently, but I've gotten to the point where like I'm not getting new orders all the time, so I'd rather limit the output a little bit. I might need to cut new frames. Sorry. To where instead of doing a new shirt that's available immediately every day, you can still buy whatever frames I'm doing, but instead using my like vending machine, like the gumball candy machine, you got little acorn capsules, putting those in, and once a week drawing out a new shirt. It'll make more sense once I put it into practice, but for the time being, that's the plan. I'm gonna need some more frames, so I'm actually gonna cut some of that up, some of that paper. I go through paper a lot faster when I'm doing animations pretty much every day and doing a little bit longer form using half sheets. In the past I would have used quarter sheets for 8ths or sometimes 16th sheets, because it just was like, I can't justify using this much paper, but now I have the means and it works better for a sellable item. Like buying a tiny little guy, even though it takes like the same amount of work, there's a different understanding of the value. If you have a tiny frame that is like 2x3 or smaller, as opposed to having one that these are 9x6. Just different sense of value with things. I just might look to see what the like interactions are. I'm thinking out loud in difference. Okay. I'm thinking about zooming out for this part, but we're getting closer to being done. So don't really need to have that element. That was a little bit more violent. This hole punch is rated for like 40 sheets, but I find that it gets a little bit rough when I get to more than like 20, even with tracing paper. Okay, now let's come back to this. I can still give these numbers, but I have to be a little bit cautious with stuff. Let me think about where this is moving. This is moving backwards, so it just came down from up top. No, I'm actually going to hold this frame behind it so that I know where I'm coming from. I'm just treating this as a rougher walk cycle with some dry brush and a little rougher of edges with things. That's the point. Oh, this might have shifted a bit, or I moved it physically, I don't know. Okay, I'm also going to grab just a sheet of paper set to the bottom, which you can't even see, but it's for me to dry the brush off a bit, because to get dry brush you have to have a brush that's not perfectly wet. If it's wet, you get much cleaner edges. This is a brush I did not take care of. Oh well. Visualize this. I think I might have to just do this on good faith that I have a general understanding of what this should look like. Oh, this is O2. That's going to trip me up. Just overall be a rougher look, and I'll see whether or not I ultimately like it or not. It's pretty low risk. This is 03. That's super wet. Now we're trying to get something between 2 and 3. Four. Number 5. Yeah, I'm one behind. Okay. 7. Eight. Nine. Ten. Your hair looking so good. 11. Twelve. Thirteen. 14. 14. I'm gonna redo this one. I shouldn't have gotten that little bit there. About halfway done. This is a super fast one. I might mess with something else midway through here. $15. It's a little bit more dry on some bits. $17. Sorry, got distracted. Okay, that's what that person did. All right. Small. What's going on? Whoa, what? What you getting on? Getting on this design? What's happening here? Oh no, it's not a PDF. That's a live stream. There's a camera over there. It's part of my interest in it. Here, let me clear it up a little bit, because the autofocus is a little bit off. So let's get that back to widescreen, and it's a little bit sharper maybe now. It's hard to tell, but yeah, there's a camera over back there. Also, it's music that I made. It's hard to tell, but I like seeing the progression. Let me grab my little red dot. It's not super clear because it's not a perfect sort of space, but you can see over time the tape progress, and you can see it spinning a little bit right next to the red dot there. I thought you were like, what's happening with this? And I'm like, I'm doing some dry brush work. It's not super exciting, but it's fun. It's nice. You can get tape recorders on eBay decently. I finally got one. I have a cassette deck now that's that has levels on it, and it sounds a bit better. It's a little bit more robust. It's a bit larger, which is why I don't have it on camera. But now I can get a little bit more consistent levels. What was I doing? Cassette. You can see there's a link to some cassette tapes that I have. What I'm doing here is I'm messing with dry brushing, but it's playing with the sense of time. Dry brushing and stuff where you sort of do, you can see it mostly in stuff like Looney Tunes. There's a lot of dry brushing to emulate fast motion blur stuff, where they'll do that to imitate like speedy motion where you see partials of stuff. So I have this animation that I did the other day. That's just the walk cycle. And what I'm doing now is playing with the speed, the sense of motion with it, by adding additional frames to this. Hey, Escaros, not sure how you want to pronounce your name, but welcome. Thanks for joining. So what I'm doing is I'm adding additional frames between each of these as I go along. So I'm doing all the frames and then also doing additional frames in there so that it's a slower motion, but it's more chaotic. Escaros. If I'm saying that bad, please let me know. But I'm playing with the sense of motion where this will be moving slower, but the frames will be a little blurrier. So now with this frame, what I'm going to do is, how clear is it in the video? Let me look. You can see it pretty decently. The lighter frames are further back. You get, because the paper, as you have more layers, you see less of it. So what I'm going to do is take this frame, and I'm adding a frame in between these two. So I'm going to look at these sorts of lines, use my brush, get some ink on there, but not too much, dry it out a bit, and then sort of average out between the two frames. And this is pretty loose, so it's not super specific, and I might even like push it a little bit off to the side. And so I'll do that for all these sections here. I don't have to be super accurate with this because it's meant to be sort of blurry, and I'm not going as into detail on the face. All I'm doing is sort of having the nose in some spots. What was it? Humnum World. If you are interested in getting a cassette player, you can get some on spots like Amazon, but if you want to get one that aesthetically is a little bit older, possibly a little bit cheaper, you should look on eBay for cassette deck or cassette player. You're more likely to get better prices on things if you don't search in the vintage section, because people who are selling in the vintage area, know that they're selling to people who are like actively looking and value the aged sort of thing, as opposed to someone who is just trying to get rid of it. If you're willing to be patient with it, you can find some that are like around $10. I think that one I got for around $15 with shipping. The one that you see up there. You see over, let's see. You see pointing that way. I just really like looking on eBay for different electronics and odds and ends. But what I like about this cassette deck is that you can see the progression of time with it. If you look closely on the time lapses that I post, you can see the tape sort of going vroom, vroom, vroom. Cassette players, I don't think cassette players were really used often for timing out with things. If you're trying to like time out audio in a DIY sort of way, you might want to get a VHS player, something that physically has the audio tied to the playback, because it's really easy to get audio out of sync if the things aren't like, if you're working with physical media and it's not physically connected. What you actually have for like, there were different issues with early just movies in general, where you might have a record playing and then you'd have the film running, but if they get just like very slightly out of sync, it doesn't take much, just have to be a tiny bit off, and things run out of sync and stuff doesn't work and the audio doesn't sound right because it's wrong. So what you have is stuff where you have an optical track, where instead of having two separate pieces of equipment, you would have your film, and then to the side you would have the waveform that would be read by a machine. So there's no way to get it out of sync exactly. You might be interested in looking for Norman McLaren. Let me see if I can find that quick. He's got a good Norman McLaren. Let's see if I can find. Yeah, here we go. I'm just gonna throw this over in the chat. This helped me to better understand things. That link to that video is a good thing where Norman McLaren's talking about, or I don't know if he's talking actually, but there's someone talking about Norman McLaren and his work where he would physically paint that audio track to the side, which I would do if I could, but it's really hard to find a machine that has an audio track or just a thing that will read it. But I really do like the idea of painting sound and the connection between visual and audio things. What number are we on? On 19. Rose, did you have any questions, concerns, things that you want to ask since you're chatting for the first time? If not, no pressure. They wouldn't have played the cassette at a different spot. That's why you don't have things where you combine. VHS, pretty easy. Something that I'll let you know for VHS stuff is, depending on where you're at and where you can find stuff. I've got a bunch of VHSs over here from different times I messed with things. if you're looking for just purchasing VHS tapes, and you can find a thrift store nearby. Oh, this is physically cracked. Don't know what happened there. Anyway, there's like cassette tapes. Let me see what this looks like on here. Like cassette tapes, there's like a preventative thing to stop you from recording onto a tape that you don't want to. There's this little clip. So on a blank tape, I'm going back and forth a lot here. On a cassette tape that you can record to, there's this like security tab, or this thing that's here. See that little tab? Let me refocus this. So you see that little tab there? You can break it off. But having that there allows you to record on a VCR, and manufactured tapes will have it already taken off. It'll be empty there, but it's cheaper to buy like old, because there's just a ton of them everywhere, VHS tapes that have things preloaded onto them, but you can just physically tape over that space. If you want to take a cassette tape, a VHS tape, and record over it, even if it's like a professionally distributed one, that's whatever, just put like a piece of masking tape over it, and then you can use those tapes to record if you want to avoid having to buy brand new recordable tapes. And also if you want to prevent yourself from accidentally recording over it, same sort of deal. So now let's average out between these two guys. It's stuff that I've just learned from messing with different things. If you have any questions or whatever, feel free to throw them in the chat or message me on whatever things I got available, which includes Twitch, though I don't check that as often. I have a Discord channel you can join up on. I forget if you joined. I'm not super active in there, but if I do see a question, I'll respond. I'm probably fastest to respond to general questions on like Instagram or email. This is frame 20. And 21. Thanks for subscribing, Escaros. I might have enough subscribers to increase my emotes. Right now I just have the 2, I think. Let me check. Now you can use these guys, or one of these guys. You can use this guy. I think this one is tier 2, but that's just because I don't have enough subscribers to increase the number of emotes that I have. But working towards it. Yeah, get that blocky dude. What was I thinking? You mentioned that you do graphic design. That's what I studied in college. Went to SCAD, but started doing more animation sort of on the side of things. And started getting work, and I got a little bit tired, mostly of like when it got to the point where we had to get a portfolio set up, and I was like, I already did these projects, I don't want to revisit them. Ironic for what I'm doing right here, that I'm just literally revisiting and updating something. But I did animated GIFs on the side and started getting sort of, I got some work through that, and that was like a ha ha ha, this is more appealing to me. And also I was like just sort of, I don't know, I was kind of being an ass to some of my professors, like I don't want to do this. And so I resented more of the format, and I was a bit impatient, but it's also just a learning sort of deal. It's 22. How did I learn animation? It's a mix of things. I think the first animation stuff I did was, it was around the same time that I did some little flipbook things. Like, my dad had a flipbook that I'd look at here and again, and I liked seeing how it worked, and I wanted to do that. I also remember friends having Captain Underpants books, and Captain Underpants books had interactive elements that I really enjoyed, where it was like you'd have punch the guy, and it would be one frame like this. Here, let's make this. And then the next page would be like this or something, and it just would say like flip back and forth and punch the guy. And I really enjoyed those sorts of things, so that was some sort of introduction. Just really love flipbooks in general. I got my dad to buy me various Animorph books and Wishbone books when I was younger, but all of it was because I didn't actually read them. I just liked the animations, the flipbooks in the corner. But for actual, like, my own animation stuff, I did a lot of Flash animation in middle and high school, and as I was like getting into that a bit and learning more about just animation and how it functions in general, I practiced and did work, but I got tired, or didn't get tired of it at that point, but I got discouraged by the fact that I learned more about the industry and how the industry, not like bad things about the animation industry, but just the fact that you can't make an animation, like a full animation career thing, that easily if you're not part of a much larger team. And I like working alone on things, so I started focusing more on stuff that seemed more achievable as an individual, and that's where I got a little bit more into graphic design. But I did a number of just short animation things. That's also where I probably learned some of like my first coding stuff, was doing action script things for Flash animations. I've got various Flash animations stored like on PhotoBucket or stuff like that. And that's the sort of thing where it's a weird trip back to my previous, or just being younger. The things that didn't stick around and what those look like now. And it's really hard to get into those spaces because most of it's not physical. It exists and it's hosted on different spots, and you may or may not have access, or you may or may not have access to the emails that you associate with those spaces. Because I talked like with one of my friends about finding old Flash animations and some GIFs that it was the way I would share things to people. I made a lot of little animated icons for AIM, and there's not an easy way to send those sorts of files, so I would send them, upload them to PhotoBucket and give them a link, and then they could download them. But you could also upload SWIFT files to Photobucket for free. Now they charge you for it, but now like nothing is supporting Flash anymore. Which is crazy, because that used to be so dominant. But I learned animation from working on things, trial and error, having encouragement from peers in direct and indirect ways. And then I started doing more rotoscoping and making animated GIFs, both glitch, just stuff from videos that I liked, where it's like, I like A Tribe Called Quest. I'm going to figure out how to rip this video from YouTube and then make little clips from it, and then learning about file optimization in those spaces, and then being like, what about glitch stuff? Things like that. GIF. Got some GIFs in there. How you doing, Zolok? 25, that's just a direct one, so now we're doing in between. Got some peanut butter. You actually got the GIF peanut butter. I tried to buy one, but it was sold out. It's a good thing to eat. I tried to buy one. It was like, I added it to my cart and then it was sold out pretty much immediately after. I was cat sitting at that point in time because I remember sitting on someone's couch that is not mine. I'm trying to like refresh and having it mess up. But yeah, Captain Underpants was... I never had my own copies of Captain Underpants, but I had friends in there. And that's a really good, just like basic introduction to some of the core elements of how animation works. It's also something that I really like because it utilizes an existing format without like requiring a bunch of different work to it. It's just a clever use of having pages that you can flip, but not having to like significantly increase the number of pages that are printed in order to convey the information. It's a perfectly good thing to make a sandwich with. Peanut butter is very good. I'm curious how this is gonna look, because this is a semi-automated thing, and normally with this sort of format I would try to also have the previous frame that I just painted, but I can't see well enough through it, so this is 28. I don't have enough experience with using the pegs at either side. For a personal thing, I just like having things accessible at the bottom, but I haven't done enough trial and error for... I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, for having the peg bar at the top or the bottom of the thing. I don't have experience using like an optimized table for it. Optimized animation table thing. One that's actually built for it. Well, I guess this is built for it, but I built it. It's not manufactured. Just conceptually, I'm so used to working with like pads of paper and stuff like that, so it makes sense to have things at the top and accessible down there. But I could understand like if you get into the format in another space. I just don't know. I've never tried it at the bottom. I do a little bit more of like putting my arm down, but I could also learn to angle it. And these are a little bit more pronounced than most like manufactured peg bars, I believe. This is 30. $31. And just one more frame to go. And for this one, $32. Alright. So before I lose track of things, I'll place these guys back away. On there, on the side. Don't drink that much juice, but I do drink a lot of like diet soda. Which is probably worse than juice, but I drink it. Used to drink a lot of straight soda, but I try to reduce more for like, still not great for your teeth, but in my mind it's slightly better than outright sugar. I looked up different things about, a lot of it's, there's a good amount of acid in soda. One of the least acidic sodas, root beer. So there was a bit of time where I was trying to drink more diet root beer, but it's a little bit harder to come across. then other things, other diet sodas, and they wouldn't have it consistently at the grocery store. You can love root beer as well. Really like a good root beer, like a Virgil's root beer or something like that. I've also gotten some real good sarsaparilla in the past, and I don't know the difference. Really don't. I'm gonna switch out the tape and then prep to scan these guys. Oh, you're Scottish. I don't have. Oh, that's it. I don't know where like the history of root beer is at, where it's from and where it's most popular, but I guess it's not something that you have over there in Scotland. What was I gonna say? I've been to Scotland one time, but I was younger. I was like 8 or something. That was a trip to Europe that my dad and my sister did, and I was 7. It was 98, and the World Cup was happening, which I mostly remember because there just was stuff everywhere about the World Cup. We like went into Glasgow, I think. I don't remember too much about like where we were at in Scotland there, but then we went to Iona and spent a little bit of time at Iona, and I remember hanging out with the like people who were a little bit younger and doing general caretaking of kids. It was only my sister and I. There were no other kids there. My sister's a little bit older, but we went around and explored things. That was the first time I saw like an actual hot water bottle. Any other time with those, it had just been walk, drive, brush, scans, these. I was disappointed when we were in Iona, because we like went for a walk at night, and someone was like, make sure you have a torch, and I was like, you can have like an on fire torch. Nope, not anything exciting in Iona. I was excited at the prospect of seeing puffin, but did not see any puffins. But I did get a little tiny guy. I think we went in proximity of Loch Ness. We had like some children's book. What's happening here? Okay. I just delivered. Nope, nothing particular exciting. But they were like, we gotta get a torch for our walk, and I thought it was gonna be like an on fire torch, but it was just a flashlight, and I was disappointed. Here in Glasgow. I also remember that we had a cab driver that none of us could understand. He had a very strong accent, and like I was 7, so I was not gonna take the reins on that, but my dad had to like take a few seconds every time that the dude said anything to understand his accent. There's also something where we went on like a small pilgrimage on Iona where you walked around. I remember going to the tallest hill in Iona, and it's not crazy high up, but there's some sheep around and stuff like that. You can find some woolen spots. But anyway, pilgrimage thing. Went to like a beach, but it was like a stone beach. There were a lot of rocks there, and in the narrative of the pilgrimage, like understanding what was happening, they said to like pick up 2 stones. One you cast into the water to let something go, and then you take one as a memory. But I was 7, so I also had a hooded sweatshirt on. I had a hoodie that had a front pocket, and I just had, I don't know, dozens and dozens of rocks when I was running back from there, which doesn't really fit the narrative of what you're meant to be sort of meditating on or thinking through. I just wanted a bunch of rocks, and they were special rocks, and it made for heavy luggage the rest of the trip. I don't think there was, I forget what the order of things were. We went to London first, and then maybe up to Glasgow. I think also I don't have any, but my dad kept a lot and used them for, he's a pastor. He would use them to be like, these are from Iona. He'd use them in services or small workshops, stuff like that. I don't know that I have any. I might have a puffin somewhere, just like a tiny ceramic guy. The other thing I remember about being in Glasgow, being at that hotel for like a day, was it was the first time that I had ever been in a hotel where they like had tea just readily in the room. Hot tea, all the supplies for that, which maybe it was because I've been in American hotel rooms now that like have the same stuff, the same amenities, but in my mind it was the first time that I had ever seen it. I've been drinking more tea recently. I got a tea kettle where you can program the temperature. My mom sent me a bunch of teas at some point. And a number of them, or she sent me a gift card, and I got a bunch of green teas. And I tried making them and they weren't great, and then I tried making them at a more appropriate temperature. People don't have kettles as much. It's not quite as pervasive. Have you been anywhere else in the US? When I think about Scotland, I mostly think about some odds and ends of media that I've experienced. So I think about like Train Spotting, and then with that I think about various music. I got real into stuff that came out of Scotland in the 80s, post-punk, noisy sort of things. Trying to think. I forget if Joseph K is from there, but I do know that Scars, that band, Scottish. I forget what else is in that mix, but I really liked noisier post-punk stuff. I think the first time I saw Train Spotting, Orange Juice, that's another one. I didn't think about it at all. In college, I did college radio, and there was an Orange Juice compilation that came out when I was in college, and we got sent it, and it was called like Newcastle sampler, or Coles to Newcastle sampler, I forget, but in my mind, my only real thought of Newcastle wasn't like, that's a beer. But I didn't think about, it's a place, and that's why it's got that name in there. That's my acapella version of Rip It Up. There's a song, I think, Falling and Laughing. Now I'm curious if Joseph K. was Scottish. Is the steepest hill... I've seen stuff that I know it's out of the UK, but it's like chasing the roll of the wheel of cheese as it gets thrown down a steep hill. Like a cheese run. I don't know if that's in Glasgow. I don't know way too much about different areas within the UK. So my little story, there's a decent, there's an area near here that is like India Square. There's a lot of people who immigrated to this area from India in like the 80s, and so there's a decent selection of, there's a spot close by that's got like a few blocks where it's all Indian stores, restaurants, etc. And Edinburgh. I've probably said that in a way that sounds very American. Because whenever I hear people talking about Edinburgh, they're like saying it different ways if they're from closer to that area. But anyway, there's a bunch of Indian spots. Edinburgh? Okay, cool. And I was walking there on St. Patrick's Day, and I walked by a building, and I was like, whoa, that business painted their whole building with the Irish flag. That's crazy that they did that for St. Patrick's Day. And I felt dumb because I was like, no, that's the Indian flag. It's turned differently in there. It's different. But it made me think about how countries that have orange, white, and green on their flag have tumultuous relationships with the English. If you got those three colors as stripes on your flags, there's a good chance you hate England. That's the last one scanning. They're all just in there? Oh, I know. Yeah, something weird happens with my scanner here and there, where it'll scan the first in a series into the correct folder. But then it'll put all the other ones into some temporary folder that I don't know why. So every now and again it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I need to move some files around. Let's rename these guys. Make sure that they are in order. Cool. Now let's pull up Photoshop. Cool. I wasn't sure if I'd have to redo that because I just updated my Adobe Suite recently and I wasn't sure if the I'd have to relink out the Connection Live Designs 324 dry brush, grab all these guys, start loading them up. As that's loading up, give it a moment. This is going slow. This may or may not freeze up in this space. I might have to close. Nope, there it goes. Okay. Today is 3/24/2021. I don't know if you're seeing it, but this would probably trip you up on the date a little bit because I'm doing it the American way. And I don't know why we do it this way. This is walk cycle dry brush animation 32 frames. What was I going to get at? The first time that I saw Trainspotting, that was a midnight movie, and that made me get into Iggy Pop. I also got more into New Order as a result of that. Okay, now let's crop this down here. This might act up a little bit. Make frames from layers. Other 0.0. Wait, no. 0.1 because I need to export these to 80. Save that. Select folder, desktop. I have not read the book, and I didn't watch the more recent Trainspotting. Dry brush stills. How do you say Glasgowian? Glasgowian? Wouldn't bother with the newer one. Danny Boyle is like a weird mix of things sometimes. He hits and he misses. in different ways, but he makes an effort in different way. Glaswegian. Okay. Recently I looked up what the term was for like what you call a person from a place. There's a term for it. No, I need to make a new one. Now let's turn these. Okay, let me take a few steps back. I made a mistake here. Okay, here we go. Alright. I forgot to make a new. Ugh. A few steps back. Did I not bother to do that? Damn it. Okay. Make frames from layers. Come through. Reverse these frames. 0.1. 1080. You're whatever. It's more interesting if people are watching and listening at the same time. I also haven't done this in like a week or so, and sometimes I get tripped up when I jump back in, even after a few days. Get rid of that. You also can't see everything that I'm doing. You're just seeing the main page, but I'm prepping these files as I'm working for a few different formats. So I crop it down to just the outside, save those out as individual stills so that I can put them on my website for sale, and you can identify what still it is that you're looking at. And then right now what I'm doing is making all the frames visible on one frame so that I can select them all and blend it in a way where I can see the edges of everything, so I can crop it down and then export it for what will eventually be Instagram and some other spots. But I made a mistake before of not creating a new frame, and so I affected all the individual frames. Let's size this down to 1080 so I don't need it to be at 4K for what I'm using. And let's pull up curves layer, make this black a little bit darker, save this out for Instagram. I have to redo this. I'm just making various mistakes. I didn't change the frame rate for saving it out. It has nothing to do with you talking about being talking about Scotland and such. We'll get the stills ready later. Not quite there. Let's get a bit darker. And change this frame rate. Save this out as an animated GIF. It's a fine size. Actually, let's push up the number of colors. Looks a little nicer. Live designs, 324, grab grab that naming format, and make this GIF. And let's see what it looks like. Switch out this image. Actually, cancel that. I'm going to copy and paste duplicate it and switch out this file that it's referencing. So there's that, and it's based off of this guy. Let me turn off Photoshop. That's confusing to look at. Okay. So this one on the right took a bit more time and a bit more effort because it was establishing the motion, and then the one on the left is a lot rougher, but it has a sort of more ethereal looking motion because it's twice the number of frames and it's blurrier, so you have sort of softer thing to it. It was fun to mess with. So just while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and re-export these things. It shouldn't take too long. I just need to come back here, change the size to 1080, and export a second time. But right now, I made it so you couldn't see the... I closed out Photoshop in the video. Okay. Render it out, and now it's going there. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Went a little bit faster because I was... Let me actually make this even a little bigger. I'm gonna throw my links up. Spiel time. If you want to purchase the stills that I did today or other merchandise, you can go to traceloops.com/store. If you want to watch this live stream in full at a later point in time, previous live streams that I've made, as well as some other videos, you can check those out on YouTube, youtube.com/traceloops. You should be able to just search Traceloops and it'll pop up with the channel and then some other things as well. If you want to follow me on other platforms, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Traceloops on both of those platforms. If you want to have something shipped from a web store outside of the US, you can email me, traceloops@traceloops.com, and I'll work with you to get that sent out. Some things are just minorly more expensive for international things, and then some things are up to like $20 to $30, depends where it's being shipped and how much it weighs. But you can email me, traceloops@traceloops.com. You can also email me with commissions and things like that. You can also, my Discord server is in the chat there. You can join up and I'll post updates, stuff like that, and links out directly to things and such. The other thing is me talking through. I am decreasing the number of t-shirts that I regularly put on my website, and I'm trying to create a more engaging situation with that. And so what I'm planning on doing is, let me get one of these guys, grab this guy. I purchased, I don't know if this is in frame, let me look. You can see it, and it's in the frame there. I purchased this, it's a little bit heavy because it's just metal at the bottom. I got this guy right before the pandemic hit, and I was planning on having it for an open house thing, but that ended up not happening. So I've been trying to think of ways I can utilize it And what I'm planning on doing is using it as something of a, not a raffle exactly, but using it to slightly randomize how things are coming out. So what I want to do is every time that I make a design, I can draw a version of it. Let me mute this. So in this case, I have a little dry brush dude walking. Paint a version of this guy. Just the little guy. Oh wait, no, this one would be the long arm. And then I'll write the date that I created it. Today is March 24th. So 3/24/21. And now gonna make sure this guy's dry. Fold it up. Put it into here. And drop it in there. And I'll do a weekly drawing and then put that shirt up for availability. It'll become a little bit more clear and a little better as I fill this out some, but yeah, eventually it'll come up. I won't be taking any shirts out of my web store for purchase until I start cycling them through, but it just adds something else to the experience and takes a little bit of work off of my plate by switching the format a bit. I actually have two of those, but that one's a lot easier to manage. I've got one that's a 50-cent guy that's heavier and bigger, and it's nice for doing slightly larger objects, but that one's not in my room. So throw that image back up. Again, if you want to watch these things in full, I'm just going to throw the links up once more. YouTube.com/traceloops. If you want to buy things and ship within the US, you can go directly to the web store. You can also look at things that are available there. And then email me if you want to ship them internationally. If you want to ship internationally, email me traceloops@traceloops.com. You can also email with general questions, interests, commissions, etc. If you have more general, just sort of quick questions, stuff like that, you can direct message me here on Twitch. You can also go to Instagram. TikTok is a great messaging system for people who aren't mutuals. But you can also check out the Discord channel, Discord server. I have to remember that things have different nomenclatures. Thank you for watching, and plan on being back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, Escaros, for subscribing. And now I might listen to some Scottish post-punk. Adios.